Thank you so much. So I'll greet everybody and then we'll start this. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome to our Erev Shabbat service. Rabbi Sar is still in Israel, so this evening the service will be led by three people. I'll do Kabbalat Shabbat, then David will take over and lead the rest of the Ma'ariv service, and our sermon will be delivered via Zoom by Simon Horwitz from Canada. Sorry about the nightclub-style dark lighting. We are hoping that load shedding will come to an end soon and that everything will return to normal. We begin this evening's service with Lee and Dylan doing Yedid Nefesh on page 126. Shabbat Shalom once again, and we now turn to page 118 for the lighting of the Shabbat candles.
Please rise. As these candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our day be amongst those who kindle light. Blessed are you, eternal our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
We now begin the full sequence of Psalms for Kabbalat Shabbat. Please turn to page 130 for Lechu Neranenah.
Lechu neranenah l'Adonai. Naria, naria l'tzu yishenu nekadma panav b'todah. Naria, naria l'tzu yishenu b'zmirot naria lo.
Ki el gadol Adonai umelech gadol al kol Elohim. Asher biyado mechkarei aretz, v'to'afot harim lo, asher lo hayam v'hu asahu, v'yabeshet yadav yatsaru. Bo'u nishtachave v'nichra'a, nivracha lifnei Adonai osenu, ki hu Eloheinu, v'anachnu amarito, v'tzon yado, hayom im b'kolo tishma'u. Page 131, Psalm 96. Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo, basru miyom liyom yeshuato, safru v'goyim kvodo, b'chol ha'amim niflaotav, ki gadol Adonai u'muhulal ma'od, nora hu al kol Elohim, ki kol Elohei ha'amim elilim, v'Adonai shamayim asa, hod v'hadar lefanav, Oz v'tiferet b'mikdasho. Yismechu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam umlo'o. Ya'aloz sadai v'chol asher bo. Az yiranenu kol atzei ya'ar, lifnei Adonai kiva. Kiva lishpot haaretz, yishpot tevel b'tzedek, v'amim be'emunato. Turn please to page 133, and we'll read Psalm 97 together in English at the top of the page. The Eternal One is sovereign. Let the earth exult, the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God. Righteousness and justice are the base of God's throne. O you who love God, hate evil. God, guard the lives of your loyal ones, saving them from the hand of the wicked. Light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in the eternal and acclaim God's holy name. And then we move to Psalm 98, lower down on the page. Mizmor. Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash, ki niflaot asa, hoshia lo yemino, uzroa kodsho. Hodia Adonai Yeshuato le'enei hagoyim gilat tzidkato. Zachar chasto ve'emunato le'veit Yisrael. Ra'u kol afsei aretz et Yeshuat Eloheinu. And we'll continue in English at the bottom of page 134. Raise a shout to God, all the earth. Break into joyous songs of praise. Sing praise to God with the lyre and melodious song, with trumpets and the blast of the horn. Raise a shout before God, the ruler. Let the sea and all within it thunder, the world and its inhabitants. Let the rivers clap their hands, the mountains sing joyously together at the presence of the Eternal One. For God is coming to rule the earth. God will rule the world justly, and its people with equity. We move on to Psalm 99, moving steadily through the Kabbalat sequence. Adonai malach yirgezu amim, yoshev kruvim tanut haaretz. Adonai b'tzion gadol, v'ramhu al kol ha'amim. Yodu shimcha gadol v'nora kadosh hu, v'oz melech mishpat ahev. Ata konanta meisharim, mishpat u'tzedakah b'Yaakov, ata asita. Romamu. And now we come to Psalm 29, the psalm that's often attributed to Adam and Eve celebrating the creation. Let's read the first part in English at the bottom of page 136, and then we'll change to Hebrew at the top of 137. A psalm of David. Ascribe to the Eternal One, O divine beings, ascribe to God glory and strength. Ascribe to the Eternal One the glory of God's name. Bow down to God, majestic in holiness. The voice of God is over the waters. The God of glory thunders. The Eternal One over the mighty waters. The voice of God is power. The voice of God is majesty. The voice of God breaks cedars. The Eternal One shatters the cedars of Lebanon. God makes Lebanon skip like a calf, Syrian like a wild ox. Kol Adonai chotzev lahavot esh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yocholel ayalot, Vayechesof ya'arot, Vahechalo kulo omer kavod. Adonai lamabul yashav, Vayeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. May God grant strength to our people. May God grant our people peace. Page 138, Lecha Dodi.
Shabbat nekabela, Shamar v'zachar b'dibur echad, Ishmi'anu el meyochad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shemo tiferet v'litila, L'echad odi, L'echad odi l'krot kala, Shabbat nekabela, likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor habracha, merosh mikedem סוחו סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי לקרות קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקרות קלה פני שבת נקבלה התעוררי התעוררי כי ברך קומי אורי 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 שתדברי כבוד אדוני הלך נגלה לך דודי לקרות קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקרות קלה פני שבת נקבלה.
Please rise, face the door.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גב ושמחה ובצהלה תוך אמונה עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקרות קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקרות קלה פני שבת נקבלה.
Please be seated. We've now welcomed in the Shabbat bride, and so we move appropriately to Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat.
Sorry. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות. עלי עשר ועלי נובר, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. כי שימחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידיך רנם. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
איש בער לא ידע, וכסיל לא יבין את זאת. צדיק?
צדיק אתה אמור יברח, כארץ בלבנון בלבנון.
can see little glimmerings of mobile phone lights all around the shul, but I think we've generated a lot more spiritual light with our kavanah and with the power of the music. And so let's move to the final psalm in this Kabbalat Shabbat sequence on page 141, Psalm 93. Adonai malach kayut lavesh Adonai oz hitazar, aftikon tevel bal timot, nachon kisacha me'az me'olam ata, nas'u naharot Adonai, nas'u naharot kolam, yis'u naharot doch yam.
Mikolot mayim rabim, adirim mishpereya. Mikolot mayim rabim, adirim mishpereya. Dai, 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 adir b'maram Adonai, adir b'maram Adonai, adir b'maram Adonai,
Eidotecha ne'emnu ma'od, levetcha na'ava kodesh, Adonai le'orech yamim, God for all times. Please turn to page 144 for the Chatzi Kaddish, and then we'll move immediately to 146 for the Baruch Hu.
Yitgadol v'yitkadash Shemir Rabba. Amen. Bal ma divrach iroteh v'yamlich malchuteh. B'chol yichud u'b'yom echad u'b'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. B'kol u'b'zman karev v'yimara. Amen. Yishmer Rabba mevorach le'olam olal me'almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitaron, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shmita kudsha brichu. Leila min kol bechata v'shirata. Tu Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach le'olam va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Shabbat Shalom, and the congregation can be seated. We're going to start with the page 148, and we're going to read together the first bracha before Shema. We're going to read together in English. Blessed are you, eternal our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, whose wisdom opens heaven's gates, whose understanding changes times and seasons, and who arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are the creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzebaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Eternal One, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. We turn to page 150, and the choir will lead us in Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha avta, Amcha avta. Torah.
Blessed are you, Eternal One, who loves your people, Israel. And so we arrive at the Shema, that moment where we proclaim the unity of God. And so we cover our eyes and we will sing together. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Vayed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Page 156, we'll read together in Hebrew. אמת ואמונה כל זאת, וקיים עלינו כי הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואין זולתו. ואנחנו ישראל עמו, הפותנו מיד מלכים מלכנו, הגואלנו מכף כל העריצים, העושה גדולות עד אין חקר, ונפלאות עד אין מספר, השם נפשנו בחיים ולא נתן לנו רמות רגלינו, העושה לנו ניסים בפרעה, אותות ומופתים באדמת בני חם, ויוצא את עמו ישראל מתוכם לחירות עולם. וראו בניו גבורתו, שיבחו והודו לשמו, ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל, לך אנו שירה, בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקר יום לפני משה.
כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגואלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. And at a point in our world where we see war breaking out in an African country in Sudan, and I think we're very traumatized by that, the continuing war in Ukraine, let us say with gusto, Hashkivenu, the prayer for God placing a canopy of peace over us together on page 160. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our sovereign, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. God our going and coming to life and to peace forevermore. Blessed are you, eternal one, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, over Jerusalem and over the whole world. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, al kol amo Yisrael, al Yerushalayim, ve'al kol ha'olam. And we now sing V'shamru, page 162, with the choir will lead us.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בני ובין בני ישראל, בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי, וביום השביעי, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
So we come to the center point of our prayer service. Keturah, can I ask you to come up to open the ark? Just need to get a talit. And we're all going to stand up. And we will start on page 164. Nay 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 Adonai. Yana nay 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 svatai tiftach. Yana nay 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 ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tegilatecha. Yana nay 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 Adonai. Yana nay 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 svatai tiftach. Nay 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 ufi yagid, ufi yagid tegilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu v'imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah. האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון גומר חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני Magen Abraham Bezrat Saram. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי מתים אתה רב והושיע מוריד הטל ומכלכל חיים בחסד מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. אתה קידשת את יום השביעי לשמך, תכלית מעשה שמיים וארץ, וברכתו מכל הימים, וקידשתו מכל הזמנים, וכן כתוב בתורתך, ויחולו השמיים והארץ, וכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי, מלאכתו we acknowledge with thanks that you are our eternal God and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one, whose kindness never fails, We forever put our hope in you. Bial kulam yiparach vitromam, shiltam alkeinu tamid leolam va'ed, v'chol ha'chayim yodu kasela, yalu et shimcha b'meta el Yeshuateinu ve'ezrateinu sela, baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, u'lecha na'el hodot.
Shalom.
Congregation may be seated. You now have an opportunity to reflect on your week. The Shabbat is an opportunity to think through what's happened, to hold on to those things that have been good in your week, to release those things that have been bad in your week. And so we're going to have a little bit of time for silent meditation. And just after that, Lee will lead us in Yuyula Ratzon. So we'll have a few minutes, and please just close your eyes and allow yourself to think through what are the things you want to hold on to this week and which are the things you want to release. Thank you very much to Lee, and we'll also sing the concluding prayer together, which all of you know, or say shalom. Oh, say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol ha'olam, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'yakol ha'olam. 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 Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'yakol ha'olam ve'imru, amen. Some of you may have been a little bit puzzled. I make a slight change. The traditional wording is I'll call Yisrael, which says bring peace to the whole of Israel, right? Which is of course very important. But I make a change to bring peace to the whole world, Kol Ha'olam. And there's different variants of that, Kol Yoshvei Tevel, those who live on this earth in the Reformed community, and various other variants that exist. So we're going to turn to page 511 before we have a sermon. And we're going to, at this point, seek to wish a refuah shleima, speedy recovery, and a renewal of spirit and healing to those who in our community are not doing too well. I'm going to read out the name we have, but I'm also going to invite members of the community to mention people out loud if you wish to, or in your hearts, of those who you are thinking of at the moment who are not doing so well. So we have on our list Marion Bubley, Peter Danheiser, Barry Dwalatsky, Bella Gonsalves, Nate Herskowitz, Stephen Jacobs, Greg and Ruth Jordan, Barry Levine, Kathy Singer, and Robert Ivan Thompson. And I'm going to, as I move across the shore with my hand, you can call out a name or something before we say the prayer. Great. So we're going to go on to page 511, and Lee will lead us in the Misha Barach. Thank you to Lee and Dylan for beautiful music that we have tonight. And we're now going to have our sermon coming to us all the way from Canada by Professor Simon Horwitz. Many of you know Simon, made a tremendous contribution to our congregation and her congregation in Saskatoon. And Simon has very kindly agreed to do the sermon tonight. We look forward to that. Simon, I see you on the screen, so over to you.
Well, let's just check that everybody can hear me. David, can you hear me in the show? Somebody,
Yes,
can you hear me in the show?
We can
Perfect. And I
hear
hope
you.
people great. And I hope everyone on Zoom can hear me too. And thank you for inviting me, and thank you, David and Merle, for a beautiful service. Leviticus has always been a problematic book for progressive Jews. It recounts the rituals of a hereditary priestly cult. It offers explanations and detailed descriptions of sacrifices that entail the slaughtering and dismembering of animals and the spreading of their blood on the altar before burning them for smoke to rise up to God. Many reasons to be a vegetarian, as we ask ourselves why these innocent animals were supposed to die and suffer for our sins. Last week, we read the detailed description of skin diseases and ancient medical procedures. And of course, Leviticus contains the references that caused untold suffering to the LGBTQIA+ community. In an article on this in Keshet, an online Jewish community, Rabbi Michael Kaplan has an article entitled, "How do we solve a problem like Leviticus?" So how do we solve a problem like Leviticus? Do we simply ignore it, as some have done, and not only in the Jewish community? When the Reader's Digest published a condensed version of the Revised Standard Version of the Bible, it was naturally all condensed, but the most condensed was Leviticus, which ended up being nothing more than a few pages. Or should we see it as history, as American rabbi and historian Lawrence Sussman does? He explains that for progressive Jews, Leviticus can be seen as part of our sacred heritage, the evolution of our spiritual and religious practice. We look at Leviticus to look back to see from where we came, rather than see it as any kind of blueprint for the future. Or do we try to explain it away? I'll return to these questions in a few minutes. This week's parasha from Leviticus is Emor. It has 4 main points: the rules and regulations regarding the lives and sacrifice of the priests, the Kohanim, the setting of the Jewish calendar, telling us when Shabbat, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and so on are, commandments about the lighting of the sanctuary menorah, and instructions about the sanctuary bread, which until reading this again, I forgot that the sanctuary bread was a thing. Laws dealing with profanity, murder, the maiming of others are all outlined. There is a lot here, and a lot of it is problematic. But I want to focus on one section, a section that I find particularly disturbing as a person living with a disability. Verses 16 to 21 read, and if I was teaching in my classroom, I would say this needs a trigger warning. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Speak to Aaron and say, no man of your offspring throughout the ages who has a defect shall be qualified to offer the food of his God. No one at all who has a defect shall be qualified. No man who is blind or lame, or has a limb too long or too short. No man who has a broken leg or a broken arm, or who is a hunchback or a dwarf, or who has a growth in his eye, or who has a boil scar, or scurvy, or crushed testes. No man among the offspring of Aaron, the priest, who has a defect shall approach to offer the Lord's offering by fire. Having a defect, he shall not qualify to offer food to his God." What an array of defects. But how do we understand this? Firstly, perhaps we can look elsewhere in our texts. But when we do, we find a stark contradiction. Genesis tells us that we are all created in the image of God, and therefore no one has defects that are not part of who we are and who we're supposed to be. In Pirkei Avot, we're taught that Rabbi Akiva says, human beings are loved because they were made in the image of God. And the Mishnah teaches us in many places that God created each person unique. And there are many more like this. But focusing on these good messages means that we're not grappling with all the messages and lessons within the Torah. And this grappling is the very essence of what it means to be Jewish. There's no shortage of grappling with these words. The works are discussed, dealt with, and people are trying to understand these words in a large number of seminars. This is a 10-minute sermon and not a 3-hour lecture. So I'm going to stick to 3 main arguments, one that's rooted in the 12th century and 2 that are more modern. These are the arguments that are often put forward to explain this passage. The Rambam explains that what is most important are the clothing and the physical appearance of the Kohanim, which is a question of aesthetics, not of value or worth. They need to dress well and look good to gain the respect of the people, or as most translations have it, the multitude. For the Rambam, the multitude are the uneducated masses who are unable to understand the deeper truths of the Torah. The Rambam is saying that these disqualifications of the blemished Kohanim is a concession to the bitter reality that people judge others by their appearance. A more modern version of this argument is made by Rabbi Joshua Standlin, who calls himself a postmodern Orthodox rabbi from Cambridge, Massachusetts. He argues that in these lines, we can find evidence of what he calls the divine concession. Using texts from elsewhere in the Torah and other Jewish texts, some of which are outlined above, he argues that God did want to treat everybody as equal and include all those with disabilities, but the plan failed because of human shortcomings. He suggests that these lines do not highlight any discrimination from God, but rather he sees them as an understanding of social intolerance. Therefore, we must work to overcome the social prejudices to which the priestly disqualifications are a concession. Others try to say that there are redeeming elements to this passage. For example, that the disfigured priests are not barred from the temple. They could walk around and they could eat from the sacrifices just as the other Kohanim could. So they argue that the benefits of being a priest are there for those people. They're just not able to officiate. So the argument suggests that the disabled Kohanim still have worth and value and are respected. Perhaps there's some merit in these explanations, but they still mark the disabled priests as different, unable to fulfill the complete function. Still others argue, and this is my third and final argument, still others argue that the disabled Kohanim are not being excluded, abandoned, or rejected, but are being singled out because they are chosen to fulfill a different role. They have other functions, which are also outlined. They are on a different and unique journey. But this is an argument that is all too familiar for those women who grew up in the Orthodox community. A frustrating argument I often heard, that women were not discriminated against. Rather, not being called to the Torah, not singing out loud, not laying tefillin was not discrimination. It was just that we had other roles, other special roles. None of these 3 arguments satisfy me. They seem to be a cop-out and insufficient. But I could not, in all the extensive reading and research I did this week, and this was a very unusual rabbit hole to go down on the internet, find an exploration or a workaround that satisfied me. The old joke that if you ask enough different rabbis, you'll eventually get the answer that you would like did not translate. I could not find one in all of the commentaries I read that made these words easier to read or easier to bear. And I also don't think we can simply ignore them. So what do we do? To me, the answer is in the words themselves. Perhaps it is in the discomfort we feel when we read them that we find the answer. There is no way to ignore or explain away discrimination in these words. To me, there is no hidden meaning. The value and the lesson is in the discomfort itself. The process of thinking about these words, of trying to understand them. My own feelings of anger at how the disabled were treated awoke in me a renewed call to examine my own life. How do I treat those with disabilities? Do I assume that because they are disabled, they can only do a part of the job? The parasha suggests that those who are disabled can be included, but they're not allowed to do the full job. think we need what Rabbi Rick Jacobs, the president of the Union of Reformed Jews, calls audacious hospitality. This, he argues, is not a temporary act of kindness, so people just don't feel excluded. It's an ongoing invitation to be seen as whole and seen as part of community. It is a way to transform not the other, but to transform ourselves in the process. For me, there's no way around these harsh words, but in reading them, in thinking about them, and in acting on our feelings of injustice, we make the world a better place. These words are valuable because they are a wake-up call. Shabbat Shalom.
Very much to Simon for this fantastic sermon, really deep and raising the question of disability in Jewish tradition, which, as you mentioned, Simon, deserves a longer engagement, but you've outlined some of the really excellent arguments, and sometimes our only way forward is to dissent and to disagree and to challenge the text that we find. So from that very fascinating and wonderful sermon, we're going to go to count the Omer. We're in that period between Pesach and Shavuot. Shavuot's not too far off. And last night was 29 days of the Omer. And so to begin us, please turn to page 570, where we will count the Omer and first have a beautiful introduction by Lee. Hayom shloshim yom shehem arba'a shavuot u'shnei yamim la'omer. Today is the 30th day, which makes 4 weeks and 2 days of the Omer. So we should have in 3 days, we should have Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer, which is a bit of a celebratory occasion. So we turn without further ado to Aleinu, page 586. Congregation, please stand. Turn towards the ark. Aleinu l'shabeach le'adokun hakol la'teit gedula li'yotzer v'reishit shehu asa goyim rabim v'chulam chafetzim la'achim b'drachav v'natan lanu gorah miyuchad shegila lanu et mishpatav ve'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu note shamayim ve'yosed haaretz u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim ima'al u'shchinatu zo v'govei meromim hu Eloheinu ein od emet malkeinu efes ulato ka'katuv b'torato v'yadata hayom v'shevota ehel levavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד, אין עוד, אין עוד. על כן נקווה לך, אדוני אלוהינו, לראות מהרה בתפארת עוזך, להעביר גלולים מן הארץ, והאלילים קרות יכרתון. לתקן עולם ומלכות שדי, וכל בני בשר יקראו בשמך, להפנות אליך כל רישי ארץ, page 590, יכירו וידעו כל יושבי תבל, כי לך תכרע כל ברך, תשבע כל לשון, לפניך אדוני אלוהינו יכרעו ויפולו, לכבוד שמך יכריתנו, ויקבלו כולם את עול מלכותך, ותמלוך עליהם מהרה לעולם ועד. כי המלכות שלך היא ולמעט תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Once again, I'll invite you, I've got a list here, I'll invite those of you who are remembering someone to, after I've read the list, to mention them yourself. We are this week mourning Rob Shapiro, and we mourn with the family of our dear member, Rob Shapiro, who passed away on Monday evening following a year-long battle against cancer. Rob is being cremated privately. A memorial service, though, will be held in the Sloan Auditorium next Wednesday at 11 o'clock. And his sister Wendy is with us tonight. Wendy, may you be consoled amongst the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. We also remember Sigrun Bertoldi, and our sincere condolences also to Andreas Bertoldi and his family on the passing of his beloved mother, Sigrun Bertoldi, on Thursday morning. You too, Andreas, may you be comforted amongst the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. We also remember the Yahrzeit, the passing this last coming week of Joan Alexander, grandmother of David Alexander, Jacques Applebaum, remembered by Frida Applebaum, Gerald Jordan, father of Gregory Jordan, grandfather of Janice Rosenberg, Isaac Levine, father of Jenny Henning, Ernest Lewis, father of Herb Lewis, Jacob Pimstein, father of Frida Applebaum, Harold Tanschel, father of Steve Tanschel, Roselle Fogelman, sister of Gail Berman, and Jane West, mother of Ian West. And I'm going to remember myself, a friend of mine, a dear friend who passed away recently, Jeff Cohen Dorfman. And I'm going to go again to the side. If anyone's remembering anyone who we have not put on the list, please call out their names. And so we say Kaddish for these and all those who don't have anyone to say Kaddish for them. Yitkadal v'yitkadash meraba. B'alma divrach ibutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chaychon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabam vorach leolam olomei olmaya. Yibarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. Vitadar, vitale, vitalal, shmei de kodesha, brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol ha'olam v'imru, amen. Congregation may be seated. I'm not sure if there are any congregational announcements that we have. Tomorrow, do we have a service tomorrow?
It's 9:30 tomorrow.
There is a service at 9:30 tomorrow. And the Talmud group at 12. So there is those two events. I'm not sure if we have anything for Lag BaOmer planned. I'm not. 5 p.m. on Monday, we have an event here for Lag BaOmer itself. Okay, fantastic. Any other announcements around for the shul for the week coming? Yes? Okay, so I didn't hear that fully from here, but you've got an event on Mother's Day, right? Okay. Jeremy Franklin. Okay, so and for people to book for that, right? So that's an announcement. Fantastic. Okay, thank you very much. And I don't see any other announcements. So without further ado, we're going to close our service with Adonullah. You changing it to Shalom Aleichem, you're welcome to that. That will put us into the mood, and we will go towards then straight out for Kiddush and Hamotzi.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Malachei Shalom, Malachei
Thank you to Professor Mel Williams. Thank you to our mini choir, Lee and Dylan. And thanks to Simon for the fantastic sermon. And Shabbat Shalom to you from myself, David Bilchitz. And see you now for Kiddush and Hamotzi.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbos, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Simon.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Hi.
Is that
Shabbat
Paul?
Shalom.
Thank you, Simon.
Where's Paul?
Yeah, thanks.
There
Shabbat
people are
Shalom.
behind the screen. I almost said,
Paul.
Yeah, this
Tessa.
is Paul.
Ah,
Hi,
long
Kendra.
time.
Hi,
You
hi
don't
guys.
Shabbat Shalom,
Oh, it's
Sam.
Karen.
So glad,
How are
I'm so
you?
glad I joined today.
I'm glad you were here. Thank you. Marin and Peter look freezing.
Cold.
Yeah.
No, we're fine.
And Jess, you're in darkness.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. The
Yeah.
generator packed up.
oh no.
Yeah. So
Well,
we're still waiting. Still waiting.
Suffering. Yeah, well, mine's going off in half an hour, so I'll go.
Yeah. Ours too.
Ours too.
Oh,
Really?
are you still on stage 6? Is it going off for 4 hours at a time, or is it back to stage something else?
I think today is 6, tomorrow's 5.
Oi. Oi, oi.
Just
Yeah.
enough
Jess has
time
been
to
lucky
make
with the
supper.
generator. I said to Jess, I thought somebody important must be living near her because they got the generator very quickly up and running, but now it's not
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
Generator packed up. They didn't service it.
Yeah, well, therein lies a big problem. If you don't do maintenance,
Yeah.
Things
That's what's
don't.
yes.
Shabbat Shalom, Sam.
Simon's very quiet today.
Yeah,
there he
he's
is.
probably talking, but he's on mute.
oh, there he is.
Oh,
Hi,
there you
Simon.
Yeah, hi, Shabbat Shalom. I don't,
Shabbat Shalom.
how you doing?
Shabbat
All
Shalom,
good.
Sam.
Yeah,
This reminds
Shabbat
me of
Shalom.
COVID.
I was about to say we haven't all been
Hi,
online.
Sam.
Good.
We used to
Everybody's
stay
in-
behind during COVID.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Margaret and Liba and Jess and me, and we used to sit and have our little chats. after
Simon.
the end. And Simon, yeah.
Yeah. How you all?
Have you got your usual safari suit on, Simon? Is it not cold there?
I've got my swimming costume on.